Great experiences build great leaders. Great leaders build great teams. This is Building Great Sales Teams. Good morning, noon, and night. How are you guys doing? It is me, Ryan. I am here doing another best of episode. It is 1:51 on, I guess, Monday morning now. We're past midnight. I'm in St. Louis. Me and Doug are here to consult with one of our clients, and we need to get an episode out to you guys. So we're going to get the best of December of 2022. Now, this episode of the best of, I think what we really focused on in December was communication. Even in the solo episodes, a lot of it was following communication. And I have 3 episodes with our guests, Kota, Brian, and Jeff, and they're going to break down a little bit of communication with you. We're going to start with Kota Ivers. Let's take a look.
Create so many what I like to call hoppers, right? They hop from one company to another. And, I would coach, once you got into the management level, especially on the cable side, once you got into the management level, I would start coaching mindset at that point. You know what I'm saying? And we would go through these exercises where we mapped out the next 5 years of their life. And one of the hardest things to get them to wrap their mind around was opportunity versus compensation, right? And so making compensation-based decisions is usually a short-term decision versus opportunity-based decision, like looking at the company and saying, okay, if I go in, I know I'm good at what I do, whether it's sales or just any job I've ever had, right? I've been one of the top employees, right? So I know I'm going to go in, I'm going to learn, I'm going to execute, I'm going to rise in the ranks. Where's my opportunity with this company versus the income? You know what I'm saying? And if you make an opportunity-based decision, you may not get the income right away, but the opportunity is so much more important in motivating us over the long term versus the income.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So what do you think a good opportunity in solar looks like? Like if we've got some people listening to the show that aren't happy with the company that they're with, or they want to get into solar, they're in, pest control, they're in security or whatever the case is, they're in another door-to-door business or maybe even telemarketing, and they want to get into a different product. Solar's been on their mind. They're looking to make that jump. What should they be looking for in a solar company?
There's a few different things. The way I look at it is there's not a right answer for everybody because it depends on your goals and it depends on the model that you most appreciate or resonate with. But I do think number one at the top is trust, which is a really difficult one because you might not know anybody in the solar industry and you might have to do some cold reach outs and meet some people. And so you're kind of using your best judgment on whether or not you can trust this person or this company and the reason I put trust at the very top is because plain and simple, on paper, people can show a lot of opportunities, a lot of sexy things in terms of where this could be going, what your red line might look like, your pay scale, all these different things. But ultimately, if you can't trust them not to screw you, the best opportunity in the world isn't going to actually be fulfilled. So I put trust at the top because you got to know that it's real. Outside of trust, I would look at the values and the culture and the attitude of the environment you're going to be in, because the environment's the greatest dictator of your success. We've all heard you're the environment you become the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most. And it's true, and it's cheesy and overplayed for a reason because it's a fact. And if you go into an environment of killers, you'll be a killer. If you go into an environment of complainers and victims, you will be a victim and you will complain. And so even if you have 5 times as poor of a pay scale with a company that has an absolute savage mentality, a mentality of abundance and success and victory and confidence and supporting each other and momentum, you're going to make overall way more money in that environment than the one with the absolute best pay scale on the planet. They pay you within 24 hours, all those things, but the environment is complaints. It's negative. It's sleazy. It's screwing people out of money to make a quick buck. So I would put environment and culture and values right under trust. And then outside of that, I think you really just have to look at what your goals are for the long term, what you're looking to get over the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, however long you're kind of expecting roughly to stay in this industry, in this opportunity. And then align that with the company that sort of fits into that model. And the things that I would look at are, how is this going to be sold a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now? Because I don't think door to door is going to be the number one thing. I don't think door to door is ever completely going away by any means. But I do think that, well, not even I think, statistically, people are answering their doors less right now, plain and simple. Right. It's, DoorDash, people put in the notes, like myself, don't knock, don't ring the doorbell. Just message me when you deliver it, and I'm going to crack my door open, grab my food, and slam the door. And that's kind of the culture that we're in right now. And as awful as it is, COVID accelerated that massively. And people are in their doorbell cameras, and they don't have to come to the door. They don't want to come to the door. So I do think that the model of how it's going to be sold is changing and adapting. And you should probably put yourself in a situation and a company and an opportunity that's suited to adapting with the times. Another interesting thing right now is financing. You have to sort of bet on where you think the market's headed over the next year to 2 years, because financing is heavily affecting the industry. Are you with a company that is not making necessary adjustments to be able to potentially price a little bit lower, a little bit more competitively, and also have more competitive financing options to better suit the customer, while these interest rates are so ridiculous because dealer fees, finance fees, all these are getting crazy with a lot of these companies. So that's another thing that I would look at is, all right, where's the financial market of solar headed over the next year or two? And who's making the necessary changes to keep me in a competitive spot with this company? And then outside of that, I would just say a place where you are happy is probably the last thing. Like you don't need to sacrifice your quality of life and your level of fulfillment and peace and happiness just to have a good company. I used to always say this quote, live now like most others won't, to live later like most others can't. And I love it. I love it still to an extent, but I would change it, because that quote basically insinuates that you have to sacrifice everything now to eventually get everything. And this is the first year that I've realized that's not the case. You don't need to sacrifice everything that you care about. You can live a healthy and a happy life. You can go home, and if you like Netflix, you can watch an episode of Netflix every night. You really can. You could be a billionaire. There are billionaires that watch Netflix. Like the whole, you have to be up at 5 a.m., 4 a.m., 3 a.m., and you got to work all day long. It's just not true. You can create leverage. You can create a lifestyle. You can build a system for yourself and an environment for yourself where you can thrive and be happy while building it. Does it mean you can avoid hard work? No. Does it mean you can sleep in and be lazy? No. Does it mean you can lack discipline? No. You're still going to have to do all those things. But I do think that it's important to find a place that you're going to be happy and excited to wake up to and to work for, because if you don't have that vigor where you wake up and you're like, hell yeah, I got to go and work for these guys, it's not going to last that long, and it's just going to be an uphill battle to continue winning with that company.
And it's going back to what you said in the beginning, that short-term thinking versus long-term thinking. Everything you just went through is very long-term focused, right? Trust, values, culture. Are you happy there? And I agree with you 100%. There's certain things that I execute on that work for me, like waking up at 4:30. And there's other things that I don't execute on. Like, right now I'm watching Wednesday every night with the family for at least an hour. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, my wife's watching that right now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great show. So if you're my age, so I'm 37. Oh crap, I just made myself older. I'm 36. Like Adam's Family was it when we were growing up. You know what I mean? So Wednesday coming back around, that's my show, not my kids' show. But my kids love it too, so it works. But I couldn't agree more, And what happens is it gets convoluted because of social media. So once one person says, I get up at 4:30 in the morning, and you got the guy working out, and that's the difference between winners and losers and that whole thing. Then somebody copies that, and somebody else copies it, and it starts trending, and all of a sudden that's the thing to do. It's like a lot of what's trending right now is the tax codes. You know what I mean? You can pay your kids. Like I see one of those reels every other day. And it's working for people that are tax consultants. So I get it. Execute on it. Do your thing. But a lot of people that keep jumping from trend to trend, thinking it's going to change their life, they're not accommodating what works for them.
Yeah.
and that's different
Yeah.
for everybody. And that's the same way in the case of a.
How does that have to do with communication? So, one thing that Kota was explaining was that you need to know, as a sales representative, how to find the best opportunity for yourself. I think this builds into communication because you, as the leader of your sales organization, should be having those conversations with your people and telling them, hey, like, let's touch base. What do you, where do you see yourself? How is this opportunity for you? Just making sure that you're communicating with them completely throughout their whole entire life cycle with your company. One person who did this very well is Jeff. He started with his daughter and he brought those concepts into how he should run a business, with people having touch bases with their employees and making sure that they know those core values, they know the mission of the company and how their role is a part of that. Let's listen to what Jeff had to say.
On your Facebook page that your daughter just graduated from University of Miami. Is that correct?
Yeah, she graduated the U this past weekend. So I was down there celebrating with her, and a major accomplishment for her, and keeping the box getting checked in the next step in life.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
I also saw that you guys celebrated, and she got a little gift for her graduation.
Yep, yeah. So my wife wanted to get her something special, so we got her a nice little purse for her graduation, because she's a college student, right? So we treat her like a broke college student and go through her degree, and then here's how life really is, and now she's going to step up. And actually, even though her degree is in exercise physio, she has run a lot of the marketing stuff for me behind a lot of my companies for several years now, as a writer and content person. So I'm teaching her the entrepreneur way while getting the degrees and going through the process, so that now she has opportunities and options.
I'm curious, was it just a matter of integrating work and family? Because my daughter has expressed, and she's 12 years old right now, she's expressed interest. She's like, Dad, I'm going to run your company someday, just letting you know. Awesome. You know what I mean? And I'm like, okay, we'll see if you got the chops, we'll see if you got the grit for it, right? Did you just naturally integrate her into the day-to-day business, or how did that work?
So I'm not necessarily the best at writing and copywriting. I do it for part of my job, and I had to learn that over the years, because that's like the number one skill you can have. And I told her that when she was younger, like, hey, being a writer, copywriting, understanding that process and understanding how a business works and how to drive traffic and marketing. But I found out when she was in high school, like in the later years, that she was really good at writing and coming up with the lens of the individual avatar that we spoke to and that we needed to speak to at our business. So as I was exiting one of my SaaS companies, I started explaining to her, hey, look, like, this is what we got for a letter of interest. This is the price that we're going to get. Here's the whys. And just kind of start explaining to her, because she was, in 15, 16, 17 years old at the time, here's what we're doing and the whys. And, it was like, I have this job over the summer. I'm flipping burgers. I don't want to do that. I'm like, well, what if we paid you for a couple blog posts to get out there and do that? And then, I'll teach you a little bit over time, over the summer of what I'm doing. And that turned into, making a couple $1,000s a month by being hired by different little SaaS companies to do the content marketing and things like that. And she actually has other folks now reaching out to her right before she had finals. So she kind of put everybody on pause. I'm like, get your finals done, get focused, get your grade, get your degree, and be done. But like, they've seen what she's done in the past, and I just kind of helped build that little bit over time. Just kind of taught her, hey, here's what we do with this, here's what we do with that, and now we found a spot that she fit in, and let her just try. And here's the one thing: is like, I know it's a little bit different than what we're having the conversation, but figuring out like when to be dad and when to be the boss, right? So like when it came to like, we had scheduled meetings of, hey, look, we're going to talk about this. And I kept all the dad talk, and I kept all the like, hey, how's college going stuff. It's like, I treated it like she was an employee of the business and the job, and really mentored her in a way where it's like I would do any other employee of, look, this is what my expectations are. Here's what the deliverable is. Here's, what I liked about this, what I didn't like about it. And after, I don't know, probably 6 weeks or maybe 8 weeks of doing that back and forth, I didn't have to have meetings with her anymore. She was trained and educated on the process. I just handed her over to the operations manager, and I never spoke to her again in my company. similar to like the up and out model of me running my own companies.
Right.
I just basically put her in the right spot. She was trained, and now I had essentially an outsourced worker doing exactly what I wanted, but it happened to just be that I was related to her.
There's two major things I want to highlight with that, because I love it. First off, we think we have to, like, I don't know, just expose our kids to all the different elements of entrepreneurship and push that on them. You know what I mean? It's our instinct to, because we want to teach them how to eat, right?
Yeah.
But you just kind of let her naturally. You saw some talent in her in a certain area, and you let her naturally grow that, and it turns out she was able to grow it exponentially. But even then, in general, when you bring on new people to your company, they have that intimate one-on-one relationship with you for a little bit until they get trained up, and then you let them operate in their zone of genius basically after that. And you don't have to be, connected with them necessarily every week or every day or anything like that. So it seems like that's a process in itself. And I've never really looked at it that way. And so I might start incorporating that, especially with my salespeople when they first come on. It's like, with the operations people, they don't know how to communicate in a way that you can make decisions based on what they're communicating to you. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of times it's just a communication breakdown initially. So those initial conversations, those, the first 90 days are massive in order for you guys to connect and figure out, okay, how do we communicate with each other?
Yeah. And I've kind of set some benchmarks that I've brought over into phone sites and Pulse Card of what we've done is when I come in, we really start back with, I brought you on for sales team, marketer, operation manager, whatever it is. You've got to have that personal touch, and you've got to build a relationship in the communication, because once a communication channel is shut off, then there's assumptions that are made. There's, I don't know what's going on, or there's like lack of guidance. So you really need to set that tone early. And I think one of the big things that I did when we came on, or when I got brought on as the CMO of phone sites, was we needed to really define who the avatar was, who the individuals that we were speaking to, what are our roles and goals and objectives and the overall mission of the company, and what were the core values of it, and really instilled that over about a 4-week period into the team, and had one-on-one conversations with them, figured out, what do they believe their role in the company is versus what the leadership thought their role was. Were they matching that, or were they weren't? What were their expectations? What were their own personal goals for the next quarter, for the next year, right? And then just kind of having that conversation one-on-one, coming in as somebody at the C level or the operations level. Now, you can't do this if you have a team of like 1,000. You can't do one-on-one with every person, but you work your way up. So you've got maybe an operations manager or somebody, an executive person that's going to be able to run those operations managers and tell them the touch points that they need to have, and really push that personalization down, and that true care and communication from the top level. Because if we're not all on the same page, we're not all following the same core values, not all following the same mission, where is everybody going? Like, everybody should be driving the car down the road, and not running into each other. But if we're starting to bump lanes, and, somebody took a turn 4 exits early, and you don't know that, they're lost. So we're just kind of trying to figure out, and I did that with her as well, as I brought her into my company. Hey, look, here's what we do. Here's what we stand for. Here's what I need you to do to be part of that piece of the puzzle. And if you can do that and communicate to me when you have problems, then we're good. But you do have to have those check-ins as well, because some people won't tell you anything.
So communicating the exact role of the job. So Jeff did that with his daughter when she first started working with him. And then he took that concept and he started doing it with his team as well. So everybody knows exactly what they are responsible for, and when they know exactly what they're responsible for, when that communication is clear, then things can work out in the best way possible. Finally, we have Mr. Brian Covey, who is rounding us out. Doug asked a question on how you would handle something going sour in your sales team. Like there might be some changes that occur that are not extremely positive, or something shifts the culture or threatens the culture of your sales team. And Brian's philosophy on that is, at those times, at those moments, then you need to almost over communicate with each other, so that way you can clearly set a path forward. Let's take a listen.
I imagine you get questions similar to this all the time when you're talking about building sales teams. what do you do when that culture maybe turned a little sour? There was an event that happened, maybe it was a market shift, and you didn't have a strong enough team in the first place, and then there's a market shift and your culture's kind of going downhill. How would you recommend that managers and business owners turn that sales culture around?
Man, great question. So we just went through this. Lean in, stronger, faster, communicate more than you ever expected you would need to, because you're actually going to be in a season that you need to weed people out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's counterintuitive, right? Because you're like, I don't want to lose people. I don't want to have people leave. But the reality is there's a concept called enrollment versus registration. And if you think about like in college or anywhere else, you can register for something, right? You can just kind of sign up, maybe you show up, but you're not all in. If somebody's enrolled and they've paid money and they're truly committed to the vision and they're there, you need to find out who's enrolled versus registered. And I would encourage you to do that faster and have the tougher conversations sooner than you need to think through. Most leaders avoid those tough conversations. And what happens is things just kind of keep getting worse. And it's that conflict avoidance, right? And you think it's going to get better and it doesn't. And so lean in those seasons and find out who on your team is equipped, that is willing and is truly enrolled in this, that can help you create the change that you want to see. And recognize you as the leader are the one that needs to lead them through, right? Like you own it. And what I recognized during that season was there were some people that when times were good, they were good. When times got tough, they either weren't built for it, they weren't willing to adapt, or just their mentality and what they were used to is they're going to find the easy way out, whatever that is, right? Not doing the work, complaining about the market. All of those things are hurting your culture today. Your job as the leader, number one, is to protect the culture, protect the people. And that doesn't mean that you can save everybody. So be the leader that you set out to be, set the standard, lean in on the communication, and daily touches to find out how people are doing. Because I think through that season, we're so focused on the business and the results that many times we'll lose sight of how are the people feeling, right? Like, how are they doing as human beings? And from there, when they know you care, it's that old saying of, when they know how much you care, they're actually going to engage with you. And so you need to sort through that as fast as you can.
Yeah, I think that's huge, because as a business owner, you see the financials, you see the lack of sales, you see your baby drying up, you know what I'm saying? And so the sky is falling somewhat. And so it's hard to redirect yourself and say, hey, I need to make sure that I am touching base with my people and I have a pulse at the entry level all the way through my level. Because if not, then you're going to lose sight of that. And then all they hear from the top is, hey, we need to do this. We need to hit these numbers. We need to get back going and everything, or we need to start making sales again. And they don't have anybody listening to them, which when that comes from the owner versus like the VP or something like that, or when that comes from, an individual that's high up in the company that they look up to, I mean, that's maybe all they need that day to go out and put in 110% versus the 60 or 70% they have been putting in before,
It's
And
huge,
so,
man. I would tell you the biggest thing, Doug, is there's a word we use, collaboration, quite a bit. And it's thrown around. But if you're asking your team how to help you solve these problems, and be very clear of, hey guys, here are the two biggest problems we're faced right now. Keep it simple. How can we solve for these? See, once your team's involved in that is a simple question you can ask. And then you just got to be quiet and listen.
Yeah. And that focus is massive, right? And so we operate on EOS, which is Entrepreneur Operating System. And so every quarter we set these rocks, right? And my team tries. Every quarter they try to set more than one rock. And I'm like, no, you only get one. You set one, you focus on one, you hit that one, you know what I mean? And then we'll talk next quarter about this other rock that you have. And what happens more often than not is they hit that one rock, and then the other one they wanted to set naturally gets hit because the one rock is being hit, and the power of focus on that is massive. So
Communication. That is the key word of this episode, and that was the key word of December in 2022. You almost have to over communicate when things are going bad. You want to make sure that everybody gets back onto the same page. Everybody needs to be following exactly what needs to be happening in order for the company to move forward. Unity is the best thing that anybody can have. Once you are unified, there's nothing you cannot do or can do, however you want to look at that. Thank you guys again for hanging out with us for about 30 minutes. Like I said, we are in St. Louis. We still need to get these 3 episodes out to you guys, and we wanted to make sure that you guys had something for your Monday morning to get you guys ready to go for the whole entire week. As always, please like, review, share the BGST podcast, and also you can go to buildinggreatsalesteams.com, all spelled out, buildinggreatsalesteams.com, and join our newsletter so you can stay up to date with everything we got going on. Thanks for the last time, and let's get building. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Building Great Sales Teams. We appreciate it. Be sure to execute on everything that you just heard, and let's get building. Before we sign off, we'd like to invite you to join our Brickyard community. Head on over to jointhebrickyard.com. Again, that's jointhebrickyard.com, or click the link in the description to find out more.